Hi folks, I hope that you guys are doing pretty well. So today is Monday, the 16th of June 2025, and in today's video I'm going to decipher for you Psalm 74, okay? Now Psalm 74 is predominantly for the second half of the tribulation period, as you shall see, okay? And of course, as always, I do have a program, okay? Now let me give you a bit of a startup, if you like, as to why Psalm 74 is predominantly for the second half of the tribulation period. Okay. Now on verse 1 we read, "O God, why hast thou cast us off forever? Why does thy anger smoke against the sheep?" In other words, Israel, of thy pasture. Okay, so Lord Jesus is the shepherd, and of course the Jewish people are his sheep. Okay, so that's the context. Now, if you read this, you think to yourself, well, why is it that God, um, you know, has anger, okay, like it says here, and smoke against the children of Israel? Now, you have to think that the Jewish people are feeling the heat, if you like. Now, on the first half of the tribulation period, Israel is going to be relatively fine. They're going to have, um, of course, Moses and Elijah prophesying and things like that. They're going to be doing the sacrifices. And for the first half of the covenant with the Antichrist, are going to be fine. The problem is the second half when the abomination of desolation happens, okay? And the Jewish people are going to have to flee, okay? Let us in Judea, flee to the mountains, and so on, okay? And also, the Jewish people will have to go into the wilderness, and God is going to protect them supernaturally, okay? And so what's happening is that with this verse 1, the Jewish people are going to be feeling like God is against them, They're asking themselves this question, "Oh God, why have you cast us off forever? Why does your anger smoke against us, the sheep meaning Israel of thy pasture?" So they're going to be feeling the heat, if you like, and they're going to be asking God questions, why are you against us? And so verse 1 really sets uh, the context for the rest of the psalm, if you like, that Israel now is in the second half of the tribulation period, and they are feeling like God is angry with them. They're feeling the heat, so to speak. Okay. I'll show you my program in a moment. Now, verse 2, "Remember thy congregation, okay, which thou hast purchased of all." In other words, the covenant that God has with the nation of Israel, the covenant that the children of Israel accepted when Moses came down from the mountain and read the book of the covenant, and they accepted it, okay? "The roll of thy inheritance, which thou hast redeemed, this man's sound, wherein thou hast dwelt." Okay, so yeah, verse 1, verse 2, the Jewish people are feeling the smoke of God, they think that God is angry with them, and they're saying, "Please, God, remember a covenant, that you have, you know, uh, that began with, Moses, okay, and so on." Verse 3, "Lift up thy feet unto the perpetual desolations, even all that the enemy has done wickedly in the sanctuary." So here we read perpetual desolations. Think of the abomination of desolation, that the enemy, in other words, the Antichrist, and all those that follow him, all the world leaders, if you like, all the kings of the earth and so on, are being wickedly, you know, in the sanctuary, in other words, in the third temple. Okay. Verse 4, "Thy enemies roar in the midst of thy congregations." In other words, that the Jewish people are going to be bullied when they go to synagogues, They set up the ensigns for signs, okay? Verse 5, "Amen." Look at the italics here. Look at the font, "Amen." I think that this is the Antichrist, okay? Because he's saying here, "Amen." And if you just think about the context of what's happening to the Jewish people, okay, in other words, their enemies, who could this man be? It has to be the Antichrist, okay? Was famous according as he has lifted up axes upon the thick trees. So what I think is saying here is that this man, the Antichrist, in context of what's happening to each people that are being persecuted and bullied by this man here, the Antichrist, and all his followers, in other words, the other world leaders, is actually axing or destroying the forest, okay, of Israel, okay. Amen. The Antichrist was famous according as he has lifted up axes upon the thick trees. In other words, uh, it seems to be saying here that the Antichrist is gonna be destroying the forest of Israel, in the national parks and things like that. And then on verse 6, it goes on to say, but now, even though they are uh, breaking down the forest, but now they are breaking down the carved work thereof at once with the axes and hammers. So basically, this carved work that they are breaking down is in the sanctuary, because if you read them, verse 7, it reads, they have cast fire into thy sanctuary. So basically, they, meaning plural, the Antichrist together with his cronies, if you like, his leaders, are going to set fire into the third temple, okay? And they're going to be, with axes and hammers, they're going to be destroying the carved work inside the third temple, like it says here on verse 6, okay? And then here on verse 7, it reads, just to recap, they have cast fire into the sanctuary, meaning the third temple. They have defiled by casting down the dwelling place of thy name to the ground. So it's reading here that not only they are going to be casting fire into the third temple, but they're going to burn it down to the ground. And this can only happen, in my view, not right away during the abomination of desolation, because don't forget that the Antichrist, he's going to be proclaiming that he's God, okay? So this is not going to happen immediately at the beginning of the second half of the tribulation period, when the abomination of desolation happens. No, I believe it's going to happen right at the end of the tribulation period, when when these like it says in the book of Revelation, when the army of this 200 million men army, if you like, and the Euphrates river is dried up, okay, when the Antichrist no longer has knows that his time is up, okay, and he's gonna be coming down for the great battle of Almighty God, okay, the gathering is gonna be in Armageddon, and then Jesus is gonna bring them down to Jerusalem according to Zechariah. That's when I think that they're gonna be burning down the third temple, because they're gonna be saying to themselves, okay, then our time is up, we're going into battle. I as the Antichrist, can't pretend it anymore, to be sitting on the third temple saying that I'm God, because I got a big battle to fight. And so this is why I think that this prophecy of the burning of the third temple is going to happen right at the end of the second half of the tribulation period. Um, just prior, when the Antichrist and all his army gather themselves together for the great battle of Almighty God. Okay, and then on both sides they said in their hearts, "Let us destroy them together. They have burned up all the synagogues of God in the land." So that's what they're going to be doing. Not only is the Antichrist going to be burning the third temple down, and with access, they're going to be breaking down all the car work in there, but they're going to also burn all the synagogues down in Israel, in the land. And like it says here on verse 8, but I think this is, like I said, I don't want to repeat myself too much, but it doesn't make sense to me for the Antichrist to burn all the synagogues and the third temple down at the beginning of the second half of the tribulation period, during the abomination of desolation, when he has to show off to the world and say, hey, I'm sitting here on the third temple proclaiming that I'm God. No, I think that he's going to try and show off that he's God to all the world for as long as he can. And then just right at the end, just before he knows that his time is up, and the Euphrates river is dried up, okay, so that this 200 million man army can come through to Israel, if you like, the gathering of these nations. God is going to gather them in Armageddon, and then he's going to bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat to judge him. So I think just prior to the gathering, that's when I think that the third temple and all the synagogues are going to be burned down, because after that, because prior to that gathering, the Antichrist is going to know that his time is up and he needs to come to battle. Okay. Now, Now, just giving you a bit of a heads up here with the Bible. Now I'm going to show you the program here. Okay, we're going to be going verse by verse. Okay, going to link this together now. So, verse 1, like I just read, it says, "Oh my God, why hast thou cast us forever? Why does thy anger smoke against the sheep," meaning Israel, "of thy pasture?" Okay, so this is a second half of the tribulation prophecy, like I said earlier in the video, and it's linked to all those prophecies which say that Israel will face a tribulation period. Examples rather, Jeremiah chapter 30, verses 6 and 7, Isaiah 28:15, Deuteronomy 4:30, Psalm 10, verse 1, etc., etc. There's many. I can't link them all because I already have 12 pages and it will make for a very long video. I'm already on 11 minutes and I'm on verse 1. We got 23 verses to cover. So this is going to be huge otherwise. Okay. Verse 2, "Remember thy congregation." Okay. So as a result of the Jewish people suffering at the beginning of the first, at the beginning of the second half of the tribulation period, they're going to be saying to God, "Remember us, thy congregation, which thou hast purchased of all," in other words, the old covenant, "the roar of thy inheritance." Okay, the roar, of course, the Jewish people are the power of God. Okay, which you have redeemed this Mount Zion wherein thou hast told. Now, thou hast redeemed, of course. Think of Exodus when Jesus redeemed the Jewish people, and then uh, God put them under covenant. Okay, so that's when God redeemed them. Okay, now this congregation of all, like it says here, okay, refers to the old covenant that God has made with Moses and all the children of Israel under Exodus chapter 24, verses 7 and 8. Okay, now thou hast redeemed, part of the prophecy here refers to Jesus bringing out the Jewish people out of bondage from Egypt after 430 years. See Exodus 12:40. Okay. Now, verse 3, "Lift up thy feet unto the perpetual desolations." In other words, the Jewish people want God to do something about what's happening with the abomination of desolation. Even all that the enemy, in other words, the Antichrist and that his 10 kings and other leaders have done wickedly in the century. In other words, that of course, in the century, of course, is about the abomination of desolation, and also that the Jewish people are being bullied by the Antichrist, his 10 kings, and his other leaders. So, for my commentary here, I put this is about the abomination of desolation in the century, or the third temple in the second half of the tribulation period. This is linked to the prophecies such as Daniel 9:27, Matthew 24:15, Mark 13:14, and Luke 21:20. Okay, so let me turn over to the page 2 here. There is a lot here, folks. Deciphering this for me was pretty straightforward, but it took me 5 hours to write this down and to search for prophecies and just give it a bit of a think and so on. Okay, now verse 4, "Thy enemies," in other words, this is happening during the second half of the tribulation period. Think of the Antichrist, his 10 kings, the revived Roman Empire, plus all his other leaders. Okay, "Thy enemies roar in the midst of thy congregations rather." So they are bullying the Jewish people. They set up the signs the end signs for signs. This prophecy is linked to Psalm 2, verses 1 and 3. Now, verse 1, it says, "Why do the heathen rage and the people imagine a vain thing?" Verse 2 of this Psalm 2, okay? "The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers that counsel together." Of course, uh, the 10 kings, the revived Roman Empire, okay? Plus, there could also be other rulers as well, secondary, if you like, "against the Lord and against his anointed, saying, Let us break the bands asunder." and cast away the cords from us. So this prophecy then is also linked to Psalm 10:4, Psalm 11:2, Psalm 14, verse 1, etc., etc. Think of the abomination of desolation, and how the Jewish people are going to be bullied. They're going to be persecuted. Many are going to be taken overseas. They're going to be in prison. Many will die. Like it says in Luke 21 and so on. So yeah, it's quite a lot to think about. But I just can't put everything down because it'll be way too much. I'm presuming that people have to also do a bit of thinking themselves. As I do this video. But I'm just giving you the general idea. Verse 5, Amen. I show you in the Bible how it's written in special italics or a special font. This man can only be the Antichrist because he's doing evil, okay? Was famous according as he had lifted up axes upon the thick trees. What he's saying here to me is that if this Antichrist is lifting up axes upon thick trees, to me that's saying that he's gonna be cutting down or chopping down the forest of Israel, because Israel has beautiful forests, and national parks. So to me this is what he's saying, that he's gonna be chopping down, the forest, and then in context, well, let me give you the commentary first. Give you the context on verse 6 here. Commentary, a man written in a special font, okay, just read the Bible like I showed you before, denotes somebody of special significance. And this man can only be the Antichrist because he's the one doing evil, and he's the one to lift up axes upon thick trees to destroy them. I mean, the Jewish people are not going to be doing this. They're not going to destroy their own country. This man can only be the Antichrist doing this kind of evil, axing and chopping down trees, forests in Israel. And then if you read verse 6, okay, it says, not only is he chopping down trees, but verse 6 is saying, but now they are breaking down the carved work in the third temple thereof at once with axes and hammers. So not only is the Antichrist is using axes to chop down trees in the forest of Israel, but he's also going to be using axes and hammers to chop down or to destroy the carved work in the third temple. So for my commentary here, I put down carved work. The third temple authorities, according to what I'm reading here, they're going to have some kind of carved work to honor God. Uh, where is it? They're going to have carved work to honor God in the third temple. And this carved work will be damaged when the abomination of desolation happens, but not immediately. I think that the third temple, how can I put it? When the abomination of desolation happens, of course, the Antichrist, he's going to be there, proclaiming that he's God. So he's not going to want to destroy the third temple immediately. I think that uh, what the Antichrist is going to do, like I said earlier, he's going to wait right at the end, um, of the second half of the tribulation period, just before he comes down for the great battle. He's going to be doing it then because then he knows that his time is up. He's not going to care too much about the third temple and the synagogues. He's going to be burning down the synagogues because he knows he's coming down for battle. The book of Revelation tells us that, the Euphrates River is going to be dried up to allow the kings of the east to come in. And so when he knows that his time is up and he needs to come to battle, that's when I think that he's going to be destroying all this carved work and the third temple and, burning down, um, all the synagogues. So, so yeah, for my commentary here, carved work to honor God in the third temple will be damaged when the abomination of desolation happens, but uh, it could also will happen then, but I don't think so. I think it's more to do with towards the end, towards the end. So, like I said, the Antichrist will want to promote his own image and to say that he is God only. Okay, see Daniel 9:37, causing the sacrifice to cease and so on. So, and then um, further my commentary and the oblation, it's going to cause the oblation to cease, of course, and it's going to be, for the spreading of abominations, he shall make it desolate even until the consummation. So basically, yeah, the third temple is going to be consumed. But I think at the end, I think, like I said, I think he's going to want to use it, the third temple for a while. So yeah, commentary, the third temple is going to be burned down according to the following on verse 7 of this psalm, you know. So on verse 7, they have cast fire into the sanctuary, meaning the third temple, they're going to burn it down. They have defiled by casting down, uh, the dwelling place of thy name to the ground. Okay, so for commentary, I think that this is going to happen towards the end of the second half of the tribulation period, when the third temple is no longer at the end of the second half of the tribulation, when it's no longer going to proclaim that he's God, by using the third temple, but rather he's going to prepare himself for the gathering of Armageddon, if you like, to fulfill the prophecies in first in Revelation 16:12. Okay, um, where it reads Revelation 16:12, and the sixth angel poured out his vial upon the great river Euphrates, and the water thereof was dried up, that the way of the kings of the east might be prepared. And secondly, as well as Revelation 16:14, and it reads, for they are the spirits of devils working miracles, which go forth unto the kings of the earth and of the whole world, together them, them to the battle of that great day of God Almighty. So, for my commentary here, then, the fact that the Antichrist is now running out of time, this could well be the time of when he's going to take revenge against the Jewish people by burning down the third temple and all the synagogues, like I said earlier. If you read verses 6, 7, uh, and and then just over the page here, so it's going to be burning down the synagogues, all the places of worship, and so this is also linked to Psalm 2 verses 1 and 3 and Psalm 14 verse 1, etc., etc. Okay, verse 8. They said in their hearts, let us destroy them together. They have burned up all the synagogues of God in the land. Okay, like we just read on verse 7. But just remember that this can only happen at the end of the second half of the tribulation period, because the Antichrist is going to need the third temple to proclaim that he's God and to show off and so on, to show the world that he's powerful. Okay. So for my commentary here on verse 8, similar commentary to verse 7, but additionally, as a third temple and all the synagogues of Israel are burned down, the Antichrist, together with his 10 kings, are also going to destroy Mystery Babylon, in other words, Vatican, okay, to try and erase anything to do with God. So, do you see what's happening here? What's happening here is that at the end, because this Mystery Babylon, the Vatican, is going to be burned down at the end of the second half of the tribulation period, just prior to the gathering of the Great War, if you like, just prior to the gathering of Armageddon. So what's happening is that at the end, almost at the end of the second half of the tribulation period, the Antichrist is going to be burning down the third temple, okay? Like I just showed you on the prophecies here, he's also going to be burning down all the synagogues, and to add insult to injury, if you like, he's going to be also burning down Mystery Babylon, which is the Vatican. So why is he burning down all the things relating to God? Why? Because he wants to erase the image of God. He wants to get his revenge. So he's going to, like I said here on my commentary, he's going to burn down the Vatican to try and erase anything to do with God. okay, because he's gonna come to battle against God and his saints, you know. As God is punishing the world and the Antichrist with his seven vials, as per Revelation 15:1. So this will be the period, I think, when the Antichrist will retaliate in anger to come against God. So this verse 8 here is also linked to Psalm 2 verses 1 and 3, and also Psalm 14 verse 1, etc., etc. You know, in context, if you like, you know. Um, this Psalm 2 can be linked to many prophecies in this Psalm 74. Now, verse 9, we see not as signs, there is no more any prophet, neither is there among among us any that knoweth how long. So basically, what the Jewish people in the second half of the tribulation period are saying, okay, well, Moses and Elijah have left because the beast that arises up, in other words, Leviathan, is going to kill them both. And therefore, they're not going to have any second prophet in the second half of the tribulation period. But I have already risen up a prophet for Israel for the second half of the tribulation period. And that in itself is a mystery. Okay, so in my view, this in my commentary here, in my view, this is going to happen with the fulfillment of a few prophecies at the end of the first half of the tribulation period, when both Moses and Elijah are both killed, according to Revelation 11:7, and then both are taken up to heaven, according to Revelation 11:12. And then at the beginning of the second half of the tribulation period, when the abomination of desolation happens, according to Daniel 9:27, and also that the Jewish people, let me turn on my page, will have to flee into the wilderness, according to Luke 21, verses 20 and 21. And God nourishes and protects the Jewish people supernaturally, according to Revelation 12:14. And to the woman, which is Israel, were given two wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness, into her place, where she's nourished for a time and times, and half a time, meaning 3.5 years, from the face of the serpent, you know. And I have raised up a prophet for Israel. This is me for the second half of the tribulation period, so that they are not left alone. And of course, this is going to be a mature prophet who's going to unite the Jewish people unto Jesus. Okay. Now, this prophecy is also linked to Psalm 2, verses 1 and 3, and Psalm 14, verse 1, etc., etc. Okay. So now we are on verse 10, almost halfway, folks. It's quite a lot to explain. Verse 10, oh God, how long shall the adversary reproach? You know, the Jewish people are asking themselves, how long are we going to have to put up with this enemy, you know, in the second half of the tribulation period? Shall the enemy or the Antichrist blaspheme thy name forever? Well, if you think about it on my commentary, this is going to happen during the second half of the tribulation period, when the second Antichrist or Leviathan arises. And so this prophecy links up to Revelation 13, verse 1. And I stood upon the sand of the sea, and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns. That's a revived Roman Empire, and upon his head and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. Okay, so he's gonna be blasphemy God, and here, you know, in the prophecy reads, you know, blasphemy thy name forever. Okay, so it links really well. So the Jewish people will have to put their trust in the Lord, like it says in Psalm 9, verses 9 and 10. The Lord also would be a refuge for the oppressed. Okay, says the Jewish people, a refuge in times of trouble. Verse 10. And they that knew thy name will put their trust in thee. For thou, Lord, hast not forsaken them that seek thee. Okay. So the Jewish people will need to remember Psalm 9, verses 9 and 10. It's also linked to, let me just turn over the page here, um, to Psalm 10, verses 1 and 4. On verse 4 of this Psalm 10, it reads, "The wicked, through the pride um, of his countenance, will not seek after God. God is not in all his thoughts." So, yeah, basically, the Antichrist together with his 10 kings, they're not going to be thinking about God at all. They're going to be bullying the Jewish people and they're going to try and get rid of them. So, especially with the abomination of desolation and the Jewish people trying to flee, like I just showed you earlier in these prophecies. So, yeah, verse 11, "Why withdrawest thou thy hand, even thy right hand? Pluck it out of thy bosom." So, basically, in my commentary here is the question is asking here in this prophecy, why have you, Jesus, in other words, the right hand, who sits at the right hand of God? Remember that Jesus sits on the right hand of the Father, have abandoned us. That's what this prophecy is saying. Just people saying, why has Jesus abandoned us? Come out from heaven to rescue us, So in my commentary here, I got down this prophecy to do with Daniel's 70th week or Jacob's trouble, Sadly, they're going to have to go through this. And also as per Jeremiah chapter 30, verse 7, or even Isaiah 28:15. But the Lord will rise up according to Isaiah 28, verse 22. For the Lord shall rise up as in Mount Perazim. He shall be growth as in the valley of Gibeon, that he might do his work, his strange work, and bring to pass his strange act. Now, this strange work and bringing to pass his strange act is actually, God, putting the Jewish people in the tribulation period. In other words, Daniel's 70th week. For God is a strange act, to do this, uh, you know, sadly, God has to do it, because, the Jewish people need to come to the realization that Jesus is the Messiah. And even though it's very difficult to say this, sadly, it's going to happen. But anyway, moving along to verse 12 then. Uh, For God is my King of all, working salvation in the midst of the earth. Of course, um, this is a millennial kingdom prophecy when God comes back for the judgments, okay? So, commentary, so this is a millennial kingdom prophecy and is connected to all those prophecies relating to Jesus' coming judgment upon on the earth, upon his second coming. Think of Joel chapter 3, verse 2, the judgment in the valley of Jehoshaphat. Let me turn over the page. Matthew 25, verses 32 and 33, the judgment of the sheep and the goat nations. Zechariah 14:12 and Revelation 19:15 to 9, but a few. Okay. Verse 13, it reads, "Though these divide the sea by the strength, thou breakest the heads of the dragons in the waters." So basically, for my commentary here, this prophecy was fulfilled under the law. Of course, it's to do with Exodus from Egypt. It's linked to Exodus 14:16. You did divide the sea, and Exodus 14:16 reads, "But lift up thou up thy rod and stretch it out." This is Moses. "Stretch out thy hand over the sea and divide it, and the children of Israel shall go on dry ground through the midst of the sea." Okay, so you did divide the sea, that's Moses going through, okay? And where it says, "Thou breakest the heads of the dragons in the water," these dragons in context is referring to the Egyptians, the dragons following the Jewish people behind trying to get them. So this is a reference to all the Egyptians that were following the Jewish people through the midst of the sea and ended up drowning, according to Exodus 14:28. "And the waters returned and covered the chariots and the horsemen and all the host of Pharaoh that came into the sea after them. They remained not so much as one of them." Okay, so that's pretty straightforward. Verse 14. "Thou breakest the heads of Leviathan in pieces, and gavest him to be meat to the people inhabiting the wilderness." So this prophecy is going to be fulfilled upon the return of Jesus' second coming, when he puts alive both the false prophet and the beast into the lake of fire and brimstone. Okay. And the wilderness basically means that, so yeah, God's gonna, like I said, it's gonna put Leviathan or the second Antichrist and the false prophet into the lake of fire and brimstone. But the wilderness, all these people that are following Leviathan, that are gonna be taking the mark of the beast, they are also going to be in the lake of fire and brimstone. And that's going to be the wilderness for them. That's why he's going to put Leviathan in the wilderness among all those that took the mark of the beast and follow the Antichrist and the false prophet during the second half of the tribulation period. Okay, so yeah, like I was just saying earlier, he's going to put the false prophet and the Antichrist, according to Revelation 19:20. Um, into the lake of fire and brimstone. And for my commentary here, inhabiting the wilderness, this is a figure of speech to mean hell. Okay, all those that worship the beast and take the mark of the beast will have their end in the lake of fire burning with brimstone, according to Revelation 14 verses 9 and 10. Okay, now verse 15, it reads, though this cleave the fountain and the flood, thou dries up mighty rivers. Okay, so for my commentary here, I put there are two parts to this prophecy. Part one, though this cleave the fountain and the flood. Cleave the fountain and the flood. In my view, this is in reference to Noah's flood, when God severed mankind and all its animals, etc., except for what God allowed in Noah's Ark. Okay, in other words, Noah's family and all those animals. So you can read this again in Genesis chapter 7, and where it says, thou driest up mighty rivers. This prophecy will happen during the second half of the tribulation period, when, according to Revelation 16:12, the great river Euphrates will be dried up to make way for the kings of the east. Okay, now verse 16. Um, the day is thine, the night also is thine. Thou hast prepared the light and the sun. So for my commentary here, I put this prophecy is like a figure of speech. Okay, but I think it relates to Jesus' second coming and links up to Joel chapter 2, verse 2, a day of darkness, because it's saying here, the day is yours, also the night is yours as well. And thou hast prepared light and the sun. In other words, that when Jesus comes back for his second coming, how in Joel 2, verse 2, it says, it's going to be a day of darkness, but once the judgment is done, this is why this is a figure of speech, then it's going to be light and the sun's going to come out. So once this is why I think this is about Jesus' second coming, and it links up to Joel 2 too, a day of darkness. Let me turn around the page here. And of gloominess, a day of clouds and of thick darkness, as the mornings spread upon the mountains. A great people and a strong. There has not been ever the like, neither shall be any more after it, even to the years of many generations. So this prophecy is also linked to Joel 3:15. The sun and the moon shall be darkened, and the stars will withdraw their shining. It's also linked to Zechariah 14:6-7. So yeah, don't forget this is more like a figure of speech prophecy. You know, then when Jesus comes back for his second coming, the sun and the moon is gonna be darkened, but once he's has done his judgment, the sun and the light will be coming back, so to speak. That's what I think that he's saying. Now, verse 17, thou hast set all the borders of the earth, thou hast made summer and winter. So, for my commentary here, this prophecy has two parts. Set borders, this is about the fall of the Tower of Babel, and it's linked to Genesis 10:8. So the Lord scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of all the earth, and they left off to build the city. So God created the nations after the fall of the Tower of Babel, if you like, okay? And the second part of the prophecy, where it reads, "Thou hast made summer and winter," this prophecy is linked to Genesis 8:22, where it reads, "While the earth remaineth, seed time and harvest, and cold and heat, and summer and winter," like it says, "and day and night shall not cease." So I think this is what it's trying to say, that, yeah, we all know that God is in full control of the weather, if you like, So that's what it's saying, if you like, in my view. Now, verse 18, "Remember this, that the enemy has reproached, O Lord, that the foolish people," this is a prophecy for the second half of the tribulation period, "and that the people have," let me just turn over the page here, folks, not long to go now, "have blasphemed thy name." So this prophecy is for the second half of the tribulation period, when Leviathan arises, according to Revelation 13:1, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. Okay, so that's when the Antichrist is going to be blasphemy, like it says here. God, of course, together with his 10 kings, the revived Roman Empire, and also other secondary leaders and so on. And you can also link into Psalm 2 verses 1 and 3, which is a very general prophecy, if you like, but very appropriate, you know, an appropriate psalm and prophecy to be used with many of these verses here in this Psalm 74. Verse 2, it reads, "The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed," okay, etc., etc. It's also linked to Psalm 10, verse 4, and Psalm 14:1, okay. Now, verse 19, "Oh, deliver not the soul of thy turtle dove." Now, turtle dove is an affectionate word. Turtle dove is referring to Israel, okay? "Oh, deliver not the soul of thy turtle dove." This is referring to the Jewish people and to the multitude of the wicked. Um, "Forget not the congregation of thy poor forever." So basically, what he's saying here basically is that the Jewish people in the second half of the tribulation period will be saying, "Hey, God, don't forget that we are your very special people. We are the turtle doves, and protect us against this multitude of wicked people. Don't forget us, your covenant, if you like. And we are poor because don't forget that, um, you know, uh, in Revelation 6, I believe, where it says, I wait for a penny. People are gonna be poor. So commentary. The Jewish people, we want to have mercies upon them during the tribulation period, generally speaking, but this is more so for the second half of the tribulation period. And so this prophecy links really well with Psalm 67, verse 1, where it says, "God be merciful unto us and bless us and cause his face to shine upon us." It's also linked to Psalm 14, verse 7. So this here is on yellow, Psalm 14, verse 7. It's also linked to Psalm 9, verses 19 and 20, etc., etc. Okay. Maybe I should just get this book kind of like straighten it out a bit. There we go. So don't forget Psalm 14, verse 7. Can't show it to you. It's kind of like stuck in there. Now, verse 20. Have respect unto the covenant, for the dark places of the earth are full of the habitation of cruelty. Of course, this is happening really in the second half of the tribulation period, with abomination of desolation, the wickedness, the mark of the beast, and so on. Commentary. In the tribulation period, Jewish people want for God to remember um, his covenant with them and to have mercies for them amongst the wicked. This prophecy is more so for the second half of the tribulation period, when the abomination of desolation happens. God will have mercy on the Jewish people and to his covenant. And so this prophecy can be linked also to Jeremiah chapter 30, verse 8, for it shall come to pass in that day, saith the Lord of hosts, that I will break his yoke from off thy neck, and will burst thy bonds, and strangers shall no more serve themselves of him. Okay. It's also linked to Isaiah 28:18, and your covenant with death shall be disannulled. Okay. The Jewish people want God to remember the covenant. What God is saying here, your covenant with death and hell shall be disannulled, and your agreement with hell shall not stand when the overflowing scourge shall pass through. Then you shall be trodden down by it. It's like that. But anyway, sadly, we have to go through the tribulation period. But anyway, verse 21. Oh, let not the oppressed return ashamed. Let the poor and needy prize thy name. Commentary. Everybody during the tribulation period is going to be oppressed, okay? Except for the rich and the powerful. Um, you only have to read Revelation 6:6. And I heard a voice in the midst of the four beasts say, a measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny. And see, thou hurt not the oil and the wine. So everyone's going to be oppressed. Um, in the tribulation period, except for the rich and powerful. So this prophecy is linked to Psalm 10:9, etc., etc. There are more prophecies in these Psalms that you can link it to, but this will be a very long video, and I could do a thorough one if I wanted to, but it would just take a very long time. Uh, anyway, verse 22, arise, O God, plead thy own cause. Remember how the foolish man reproaches thee daily. So this is also mainly for the second half of the tribulation period. So um, this prophecy can also be linked to Psalm 2, 1 and 3, which is a general prophecy. And it also can be linked to Psalm 9, verse 19, where it reads, arise, O Lord, let not men prevail, let the heathen be judged in thy sight. It's also linked to Psalm 12:5, for the oppression of the poor, for the sighing of the needy. Now I will arise, says the Lord. I will set him in safety from him that puffeth at him. Okay, etc., etc. And see also Psalm 10:12. Okay. Now the last verse here. Forget not the voice of thy enemies. The tumult of those that rise against thee increases continually. So this is going to happen really in the second half of the tribulation period, when there is great tribulation. Some commentary here got this prophecy is mainly for the second half of the tribulation period, when the evil is going to get worse and worse, especially people worshiping the beast with the mark of the beast. Okay. So this prophecy also links up really well with Psalm 12:2, verses 1 and 3. Verse 2, it reads, the kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed. Okay. It's also linked to Psalm 10:4, Psalm 10, verse 6 to 11, and Psalm 14, verse 1, etc., etc. So that is it, folks. There you have it, almost 50 minutes on this very long uh, Psalm 74. Very important, especially for the Jewish people to understand this thoroughly. I really enjoyed deciphering this psalm, and sure enough, I could have put, link many of these prophecies to other prophecies, but like I said earlier, take, it will make for a long video. It will take me, more thorough research, but I just wanted to give you the general idea, of this psalm. Okay, so don't forget that you can always pause and rewind this video, which is primarily, in which this psalm is primarily for the second half of the tribulation period. Alright, folks, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you all later.